Okay, this video is RFK's new food pyramid. I'm going to show you a couple other pyramids first just to put things in perspective. The first pyramid is how does conventional healthcare work? Basically, at the bottom of the pyramid are sort of the lesser paid employees. You know, there's transporters, often volunteers, there's technologists with 2-year degrees, clerks, secretaries. They love the patients. Many of them are patients themselves. Their family members are patients. They will do anything they can. They love the patients. They're super nice to the patients. Then you get up to a higher level of expertise, like the physicians, the RNs and stuff. And the physicians, for example, they want to help the patients. That's why they went into medicine. But the rules change the farther you go up in the food chain. You basically get your money from the insurance companies. The drug companies are the ones that pay the big name university docs to write the protocols, and that you have to follow the protocol to get paid to meet the criteria for billing code payment. Okay, so you have to do what the drug companies say and what the insurance companies say in order to get paid, in order to not get sued, that you follow the standard of care. And there's always going to be a bean counter at every clinic, at every hospital in the Western world saying, how many billing codes did you generate today? And how much money are we bringing in from you? And so you can't escape that. Then you go to hospital owners, and their job depends on generating a profit. It's a business. It's not a calling. These are not Catholic hospitals run to help people. These are businesses, okay? And the stupid patients don't know that. And if you don't know that, you're always going to get chumped, okay? So don't get me wrong. There's a lot of very valuable knowledge in the Western hospital system. But all the Western hospitals are pretty much the same. You know, how can they generate their billing codes as fast as possible? So there's tremendous pressure on doctors. Go faster, go faster, go faster, go faster. So-and-so in the town, across town is going faster than you. How come? Are you lazy? What's the problem? Get your billing codes or we're going to have to let you go. That's basically it. So that's why doctors tend to just always be in a hurry, because there's a bean counter on their ass saying, hurry up. Okay, well anyways, then you go to the hospital owner, they're even more all about the dollars. And then you go up to Big Pharma, and of course, they've got an atheistic Darwinism viewpoint that patients, you know, and humans in general are just, the proles are a bunch of talking monkeys. Who cares about them? It doesn't matter what you do to them as long as you make money off them. So that's how the whole healthcare system is designed. Here's a starch solution version of kind of like a food pyramid in a food plate. You know, eat starch. McDougall says if you don't know what to do, eat 90% of your calories from starch, 5% from vegetables, 5% from fruits, and the only thing to drink is water, okay? That's really the starch solution for somebody who's just starting out trying to get well. You know, with more time, you can eat, you know, more in the ballpark of 70% of calories from starch. But he says when you want to just turn your health around fast, 90% of your calories from starch. And he'll say, why do that? Because he says that's what healthy populations do. All right, now here was sort of my version of it with the Spartan vegan diet. I've also called my diet the medical monk diet. And, you know, basically at the bottom, though, I would include all this social stuff. I think it's important. You know, maintain your social support network, manage your stress, get your sunshine, get your sleep, get your exercise, do some strength exercise, be religious. Religious people are much healthier. Then, of course, starches are at the foundation of the pyramid. I agree with McDougall on that 100%. He figured that out. He deserved a Nobel Prize for it. They'll never give him anything, but he deserves it. Figured out how to cure the Western diseases. You know, and he learned, of course, from Kempner and Pritikin and Burkitt and Swank and other persons who've done a lot of great work in that area, you know, Esselstyn, Campbell, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, fruits are next, then veggies. Then the only supplement you need to take with this is vitamin B12, like methylcobalamin, okay? Okay, so this is just the plate version of the Spartan vegan version of the diet. Okay, here then is sort of the, you know, the Neil Bernard Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. You know, and he knows a tremendous about nutrition, and he's written some really good books. So what do I disagree with him, though? I think he's a little gentle because he's sort of a big mover and shaker, so he's got to please the powers that be above him, and I think they emphasize too much soy over there. But anyways, this is sort of a more sophisticated version of it, you know, and there's a lot of good plant foods here. A little bit soft on fat. I would definitely not have an avocado in anything I would show people. Avocados are, I forget the exact amount. It's in the ballpark of like 85% fat. Plus nowadays the non-organic, and I think even the organic ones that are spraying them with that stuff that starts with A, P, E, and then you know the next letter, it's going to be another E and an L, and that stuff's toxic. I would never eat anything with that stuff on it knowingly. Okay, he also tends to say things like, oh, go easy on oil. He doesn't say no oil, not one drop. which I think is better to say to people because patients get confused. I think the way Esselstyn says it is better. No oil, not one drop. Here's a diet nirvana pyramid. At the bottom is paleo, keto, low carb, health hell for morons to trick the pros. Then you move up to the sad diet, which is still pretty bad, terrible. The Mediterranean diet for pseudo-intellectual ignoramuses like the Harvard faculty. Bottled water, cheese, wine, all this chump change crap that makes you sick. Then there's a lacto-ovo, pesco, vegetarian, sort of the middle class bourgeoisie, middle caste, carbon filtered water. You're sort of half screwed with this diet. The philosophic vegans who eat the high fat foods. And you move on up till you reach full nirvana professorship in low fat veganism. Okay, so next we're going to look here at sort of a Mediterranean diet pyramid. And the average ignoramus thinks the Mediterranean diet's a healthy diet. It's really, the only thing it forbids is processed food, but they still eat a lot of oils. They eat meat, eggs, fish, nuts, all these high-fat foods, which I think are really a bad idea. They allow some alcohol, which I think no alcohol is the best amount of alcohol. And I'll often recommend a multivitamin. Some of the multivitamins are stupid. There's all kinds of things that you don't want. The wrong version of vitamin E, heavy metals, iron, copper, zinc that you probably don't want, okay? All right, let me show you now. We're getting closer to RFK, but I just want to show you this background. Here's the Harvard clown diet. Walter Willett is the big proponent of this one. He's the head of the Harvard School of Public Health. And he's a bright guy, but I think he's gone over to the dark side. I'm telling you. At the bottom of his pyramid, he puts healthy fats and healthy oils. That's a crock of BS. In my extensive review of the literature, there is no reason to say that. I 100% disagree with that. Then encourages nuts, seeds, beans, tofu. Soy is crap. You shouldn't be eating any soy. Then all these meats, dairy, cheese. So it's nonsense. Alcohol. This is basically like the Mediterranean diet. That's what this is. Sort of a commercial version of the Mediterranean diet. Ansel Keys emphasized the veteran diet back in the 1950s. What he was referring to was mostly a vegetarian diet, a plant-based diet. It's now been corrupted to just say anything other than processed food. That's a corruption of the original version of it. And what I'm saying is, again, the world runs on atheistic Darwinism. It doesn't run on Christianity that says, that what you do to the least of my brethren, you're doing to me. So what I'm trying to say is there is no moral foundation. There are no ethics in modern science. There are no ethics in modern nutrition journals and stuff. So just be aware, they consider atheistic Darwin, meaning that humans are not creating the image of God. They're just primates, monkeys that talk. Therefore, there is no obligation to tell them the truth. There's no obligation to them whatsoever. None, zero. That's important. So you got to know where somebody's coming from when they talk to you so you know how serious you can take them. So anyways, here's RFK and the new food pyramid. And he talked about turning the pyramid upside down, which is kind of what he did from reality. So he recommends people need to eat more meat. They need to eat more what he called quality protein, meaning from animal foods. He recommended whole milk. Okay, if you're a 15-year-old kid and you want to gain weight fast, and put muscle mass on you with all this meat, red meat, I think there is a little bit of an anabolic advantage to eating red meat if you're 16 years old. You have the creatine in it from the animal. You have more insulin-like growth factors going to be generated in your muscle. You will gain weight faster. I mean, the purpose of dairy is to make a cow gain like 600 pounds in 1 year. It's going to crank up your growth factors, okay? However, you're over 30, you don't want to get cancer. The same growth factor is accelerating you to gain weight. They're going to accelerate cancer to grow. Dairy is associated with prostate cancer, other types of cancer, constipation, diabetes type 1, diabetes type 2, autoimmune disease. It's for chumps. I don't drink a sip of dairy. I used to drink skim milk, 20 years ago because I thought, it's going to help me be strong and I'm avoiding the fat problem. But you can't get around it. Even if you're still going to crank up your like insulin growth factor just from the animal protein. Like T. Colin Campbell says, it's a major carcinogen. He felt casein was the biggest carcinogen, the protein from milk. So I quit it completely. You can't get around from the prostate cancer risk. I felt a lot better since I quit it. And it's a major thing with allergies, with diabetes, with autoimmune disease. It's a complete loser of a food. Plus nowadays the cows are pregnant, so you're getting all the estrogenic chemicals. Estrogen's a fat storage hormone that promotes obesity. They'll give the estrogen-like chemicals to the cow because they want it to fatten it up bigger. You know, the bull, they want to fatten it up bigger, get it to market faster, okay? But that means you're getting more estrogen into the milk as well as in the meat that you eat. So it's all bad. Let's see, what else? He's still got oil on here. Oil is for chumps. Olive oil is bad for you. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I made a whole video about that over at Veg Source. Olive oil is bad for you. You need to know that. That's not an ambiguous statement. And the people who promote it, in my opinion, have sold out, okay? Let's see, what else? Nuts, super high fat, bad idea. Avocado, super high fat, sprayed with that AP, you know what, then the letters that come next, EL, for chumps. Let's see, what else? Fish is a loser food. I mean, like salmon, 50% fat, 50% protein, full of estrogenic chemicals, full of toxic, you know, heavy metals in the water, mercury. It's full of all these estrogenic chemicals, microplastics. I would never eat that crap. Okay, let's see, what else? But that's really the big point. He's allowing oils, dairy, and meat. He's promoting more protein. More protein. Remember, T. Colin Campbell said animal protein is a major carcinogen. He felt the #1 carcinogen in the diet. And there's no such thing as healthy fats. Okay, all this sat fat. Sat fat's it's the most diabetogenic of all the fats. It promotes insulin resistance more than the other fats do. All fats eventually lead you towards having increased insulin resistance, but that's the worst one, sat fat, which is the primary fat from animal foods, okay? You also get more arachidonic acid, you know, omega-6 fats from animal foods, and those increase your risk of inflammation, omega-6 fats. The worst omega-6 fats are the cooking oils, but the omega-6 fats also in these meats, they have a little bit of a pro-inflammatory effect. You get all the omega-6, omega-3 you need from eating low-fat plant foods. So what I'm basically saying, this is for chumps. I do think processed food is worse than this. I do think it's true that he said processed food is worse. I do think, you know, they demonize simple sugars, and simple sugars are bad. You know, the worst is the high fructose corn syrup and the artificial sweeteners. So it's true that that stuff is bad. But he really sounded like he was sort of channeling, what's his name, Lustig, you know, the Bitter Truth About Sugar video guy. And Lustig himself looks a little pudgy, and he used to at least. And he's always demonizing fructose. And don't get me wrong, high fructose corn syrup is bad. But you have to also say these omega-6 oils and these animal fats. And on the other hand, what do I think about keeping animal fats and keeping meat going? I'm actually glad that they're going to continue to produce meat and they're going to produce dairy. I'll tell you why. Because you never know what's going to happen to the food supply. You know, a couple years ago, they were trying to like starve us to death. And if they got rid of the plant foods and there were no animal foods as a backup, then we'd be really screwed. I would rather eat animal foods than eat nothing than starve to death, okay? Starvation is not just a joke. That's really what was, you know, sort of happening in the background, but luckily it didn't come to happening for real. Okay, so having a variety of foods is good. What I would prefer to see is if there were more small farmers. The best thing is small family farms because you can just know them personally, buy from them direct, and avoid all these marketplaces, avoid all these inspectors. I think what they did was try to put all these small farmers out of business. They like big farms because they can control them and regulate them more. But in a small farm, you can get a good deal. So the bottom line is I think RFK doesn't know what he's talking about with regard to food. I think the new pyramid is a joke. I talked about all the bad stuff in there, how that's going to lead to increased cognitive decline. All these oils and meats, they increase your risk of leaky gut, increasing your risk thus of autoimmune disease, increasing your risk of amyloid clotting, which is going to increase your risk of AFib, going to increase your risk of cognitive decline, etc. What do I think RFK should be doing? Please save Ireland. Ireland needs your help. Why don't you save Ireland? You're an Irishman, okay? They need your help. They can't do it on their own. They're a little country. They're getting destroyed. They're getting genocided. So why don't you please save them? Anyways, that's all I got for today on the new RFK pyramid.